All right. Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks once again for joining us to episode of Detroit Stories Quarterly. We have with us a good friend of mine, good friend of both of ours, Luther Badman Keith. A lot of you may know Luther is quite the blues man around town, and also a journalist with Detroit News and just quite a background. So we're really pleased to have his story in our summer edition, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, which will be our fifth magazine in Detroit Stories Quarterly. And we had Lou here to just come and talk about his story and what prompted it, et cetera. And so with no further ado, Lou, I just go to you and we could just kind of give an introduction, give your writing background here in Detroit, your history in Detroit, and then just move on to what prompted you to write this particular story and talk about the story.
Yeah, well, Keith, my whole thing started as a writer and journalist. Started at elementary school at St. Agnes Elementary School at 12th and LaSalle, was known at the time. And ever since I was a kid, I had an incredible love for reading. I mean, I love reading books to the point where by the time I got into middle school, I was known as the one kid who had read almost every book in the school library. Seriously. So wow. People would come up to me and say, Luther, what's this book about? What's that book about? And I love to read books about the pioneers and Daniel Boone and and that type of thing. And I remember when I finally got my first library card, and the Duffield branch on West Grand Boulevard was my local library. I think I got about 8 books out. I mean, I just love to read. In fact, I went to Catholic school, so I got in trouble at times because it might be history class or religion class. I open a book up like this, but I put another book I really want to read inside of it and make the nun think I was reading about religion. And then high school came along, and I was not a bad student, I wasn't a great student, but all the guys I hung with, I went to an all-boys Catholic high school called Cathedral, which is over there on Blessed Sacrament, where the big Catholic cathedral is. And all of them were good in chemistry and the sciences, and I wasn't good at any of that, but I could always write, and anything I had to be writing composition, I would get an A in it, and it came very easily to me, but I didn't think nothing else. When it came time to go to college at the University of Detroit, they said, you got to declare a major, and I said, business administration, because it sounded like a really important job, like I have a big desk like the CEO of G Motors. They said, are you good at math? Now, I never passed algebra in high school. I was a terrible math student, never passed algebra. I said, no, I'm not good at math. He said, what are you good at? I said, well, I'm always get A's in writing and English. I said, is there anything I can use that for? And they said, well, journalism, which I probably couldn't have spelled, but they said journalism. I said, check that box for me. And that's how I got into journalism. Literally, I had no burning passion, but being a journalist, you write, and reading and writing, the two went together. And people always ask me, and Keith, I know you and Robert, you probably had people say, how do you become a good writer? Well, best way to do it is to read a lot.
Yep.
And over time, I became really, really good as a writer. And I actually got my first job at the Detroit News. A lot of people don't know this, but I don't know if I told you, Keith, that I literally started in the basement of the Detroit News. So some people say I was a copy editor or a copy boy. And they think that's the lowest rung of the poker. I started the Detroit News in college. I had a job loading trucks all the time. I was at UD studying journalism. And the printing plant at that time was in the basement of the Detroit News on Lafayette. And all through college, I loaded these trucks when they called us a jumper. And so even before as a matter of fact, I had to take a pay cut to become a reporter. I was a Teamster at that time. And what's so ironic about it, Keith, is that the Detroit News, of course, moved their printing plant out to Sterling Heights.
Right.
And that basement where they printed the papers was the executive parking garage. And I was parking in the same spot I loaded papers in when I was going in college, man. And that was like, that is such an irony to realize that. But and then I got my first job writing and did a lot of jobs. I actually started out as a cub reporter. I know you're gonna edit this out, so I'm just giving you the background. So about a year, I was just a cub reporter covering stuff. One day, the managing editor came into my office, called me into his office and said, Luther, we'd like you to think about being a sports writer. Now, I love sports, played baseball, but I didn't want to be a sports writer, but I love sports. But the managing editor tells me, he said, we're looking for a new kind of sports writer, blah, blah, blah. We're going to do it for a few months. I said, okay. But I was, at that time, I was about 23 years old. Also, there had never been a black sports writer for the News Order Free Press. A lot of people don't know this. I was the first black sports writer for the News Order Free Press in 1973. And so I went home to my mother and father. I said, Mom, they don't think I'm smart. They want me to be a sports writer. Because I thought it was an insult. I said, I got all this education, and they want me to write about basketball and football games. But as it turned out, it was a great place for me to write and be creative, because when you're writing sports, you can be opinionated, you can say stuff. And as it turns out, I had a chance to cover some seminal sports figures before they were really big stars. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you two quick examples of that. They sent me out to cover, say, high school basketball championships one year. And the number one team in the state was Detroit Northeastern. They're playing a team out of Lansing, and Detroit Northeastern was favored. But this team from Lansing had this junior, and they upset Detroit Northeastern, major upset. So I went back to the sports department, filed my story, said, I have just seen the greatest, best high school basketball player in the state, and he's really good. And they said, oh, Luther, you're new on the job. There's a lot of great players. Don't get excited. There's a lot of players. He's just another good player. This kid's name was Urban.
Oh, my goodness.
Really?
Saw him. They said, oh, he's just another player. Last little anecdote I'll share with you. So being a low man on.
Hey, Lou, you're going in and out a little bit. Lou, can you hear me? We may need to. Okay, we're back on. Go ahead.
Okay. So very quick. So people would call in. I'll cover high school sports. People call in scores and things. So Sunday night, this guy called me. He said, I'm so-and-so I've got a little boxing team, and we just went to Indiana and won some trophies. Could you put us a little something in the paper about our trophies? We run these trophies. I said, okay. And I put them in. And then every time they went out and played, it was called the Escott Boxing Club. These teenagers that he was coaching, he was about 29 years old, and he said, I'll put him in. So finally, one day he invited me over to his house to watch fight films. And then one day he came to me and said, I got a kid coming up that's going to be really good. Could you do a little story on him? Brought him down to the sports department. Yeah. Long story short, this guy's name was Emmanuel Stewart, and the kid was Tommy Hearns.
Oh man!
So, but what Emmanuel Stewart told me, he was such a nice guy. When he became famous and rich, he said, Luther, all these folks want to write about me now, and I can get on TV. But when we were nobody, you put us in the paper just because you thought it was the right thing to do. And he always said that to me. And so getting back to the writing thing, I had great opportunities to write about, and I had a love writing. Now, along the way of writing, I was a huge fan of science fiction, particularly The Twilight Zone, which to me is the pinnacle of TV science fiction writing. Don't give me Star Trek. Don't give me none of that other stuff. Rob Serling, genius, and how he put that thing together, because there was so much irony. He had so many lessons about life and how you treat people, and karma being a you know what, because it comes back around, goes around, comes around. And I'm fascinated whenever the Twilight Zone marathon comes on, man. I watch. Matter of fact, I bought all the DVD, so I love the Twilight Zone. And as it relates to my little story, which I call a blues fable, The Last Jam Session, that was inspired by a Twilight Zone story called The Hunt. Mm-hmm. The Hunt is about an old guy from Kentucky who wants to go out coon hunting with his dog, and his wife doesn't want him to go out because he said, I got a bad feeling, don't go out tonight. Sure enough, he goes coon hunting, and the dog, and I can't recall the name of the dog, but the dog chases a coon into a pond, and the man jumps in to save his dog because he thinks the raccoon will drown the dog. And wakes up the next day, but he said, he's man, I've been out all night. My woman's gonna be mad at me. Goes back, walks back home and sees some couple guys digging a grave and says, hey y'all, who died? And they said, he's something about the old hunter, let's call him Mr. Johnson's died. We gonna miss him. And said, what are you talking about, man? I ain't dead. And he ends up walking on home, and then his wife is there, and she's dressed in black, and as a preacher comforted him, said, sister, he'll be all right. He's in a better place now, and that. And he walks in there, and she's dressed in black, and he's talking to us. Can't you see me? Can't you see me? He doesn't know what's going on. And finally he gets frustrated. He leaves the house, starts walking down the road, and he sees a guy, stops. I'm looking for Mr. Johnson and a dog named, I think the dog named Rex or whatever. Anyway, he said, that'd be me. He said, well, Mr. Johnson, we've been waiting for you. He said, what do you mean waiting for me? He said, brother, you're dead. You don't know that? He said, what do you mean I'm dead? He said, think about the last thing you done. He said, well, me and Rex, we was going, and he treated a coon, and we chased the coon, and I jumped in the water. Then he's just like, oh my God, you mean I'm really dead? He said, yeah, you're dead. He said, well, you can come in here and get your just reward. And he said, yeah, is that right? He said, come on in. And he tries to go in and bring his dog in. He said, oh no dogs are allowed in heaven. We don't allow dogs in heaven. And he says, what? I can't bring my. He said, well, if it's not good enough for Rex, it ain't good enough for me. He said, I'm just gonna keep walking down this road and see where it goes. And the guy says, brother, that's just a turny road. It just goes on and on and on. It never ends. He said, well, I don't care. If it ain't good enough for Rex, it ain't good enough for me. So he and the dog start walking down the road. And a short time later, another guy walks up to him and says, I'm looking for Mr. Johnson, a dog named Rex. And he said, that would be me. He said, don't you go try tricking me like that other guy did. It'd be hell to go be someplace without my dog. And the guy says, what? That was hell. They always trying to they never give up. He said, down yonder's heaven. He says, well, and he said, well, I can bring Rex in. He said, yeah, you can bring Rex in. Matter of fact, the coon hunting just getting ready to start. Come on in. So he goes in there. Of course, the dog comes in, and there's coon hunting in heaven. And somehow it came upon me to borrow from that idea and turn the coon hunter to a blues man with a guitar. And they won't let him bring the guitar into heaven. Hey, so the guitar becomes a dog.
Right. Hey, but don't tell the people the whole thing. Okay. Want to read the story. Okay. we got to give them a reason to buy the magazine. But yeah. Okay. But no, that's a great piece, because I wanted to ask, what in line with that, and what made you want to write that story. One thing Doc and I were talking about in terms of, particularly with everything all the stuff that's going on now, all the craziness with the with the coronavirus, and so much going on. There's almost a feeling like you sometimes you might feel guilty doing anything else but focusing on this. And we tossed around the question in terms of, I want to get your perspective. Why in the midst of all this, why do you think stories are important? I mean, even because I know so much going on. Sometimes people feel like maybe we should be spending all the time talking about this or do something this. Why do you think the stories still matter?
Because I think people need balance in their lives, man. I think that you can't. It's just like after a certain time, I've had 85 questions about the virus, 85 questions about the person in Washington, 85 questions about social justice. And all those are important, but I don't think that necessarily is mentally healthy to define your whole life by that. Not escape. that allows you to kind of recharge your battery so you can come out and cope better. And I think these stories, just like when I read Wanda,
Mm-hmm.
it allows you to kind of escape into another world, you know, not necessarily to run from something, but simply to it's like, why do you go to sleep at night? You go to sleep at night to recharge your batteries. So you get up in the morning, you're fresh and you're ready to go. And I think stories allow us to recharge our batteries, and then come back up for air and deal with what some really tough issues. So I think a good story, I think, kind of transports you to another place. You're talking about fiction here in this case, but it takes you. I mean, when I was reading Wanda, it's like I was there. Like I was, you know, all this stuff that's going on, and you know, it's like, what's going to happen next? And so I think that's what it is. And it's a great, and not to be overlooked, what do you call them? Endorphins, that thing in your brain that allows you to, you know, a pleasure. And I can use the word that it's a good story can be almost orgasmic, because you're reading it and you're reading it and you're getting just juiced up for more and more. I want to turn the next page, man. And then this is what's so good about the way Keith wrote his book. When you get down to those last 50 pages, I said, dang, I don't want this sucker to end. I don't want this story to end. Exactly. You know, there's almost a sense of disappointment when you get to the end of it, because there's no more there, you know. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of how I kind of look at it.
So Luther, and thank you for that. Thank you for mentioning Fire and Wanda. Everybody, that is Keith's book. And I believe it's still out for sale, isn't it, Keith?
Yeah, it is.
Fire and Wanda?
Yeah, I told Keith that you know, you got to make a good movie. And, you know, there's a character probably in there could be patterned after me. But again, my difficulty with finding an actor good enough looking to be me. But we probably can overcome that. But that's another story.
Luther, I want to ask you something, man.
I know that's funny, right?
It is. It's going to be funny now and it's funny later. Okay. But so both you and Keith are musicians, right? And I mean,
allegedly.
Yeah. And I've got to ask this though, from the bad man himself. And I know the answer, but I want our audience to hear it from you, because you're one of the blues legends in our area. Why is the blues still relevant today? And everybody, Luther's story focuses specifically on a blues man, in fact. But why is the blues relevant still today?
The blues are relevant because the blues are about people's lives. The wool my baby left me. The blues are essentially another form of spirituals, black spirituals, if you really break it down, in my opinion. Okay. And I got one on my last CD, I wrote a song called Working Bluesman. And I have a line that said, I got blues if you want them, any kind, any style. Blues to make you cry, blues to make you smile. And the blues can get you through stuff. And see, I always say, look at it like this. I may have said this a key to time. Blues are not meant to bring you down. They are not. They're to help you cope and get through the blues. You listen to the blues, not to get more blues, you to get through the blues to the other side. If somebody came out to see me play, please, and it said, Luther, I had a great time, man. I feel so depressed. you know, I really enjoyed myself. I feel so depressed. The blues, but what I get a lot of times, people say, I don't like the blues, but I like what you do. Well, you just don't know the blues then, because the blues is a lot of things. And so there are some times when there's blues, my baby left me and all that, but that's not to keep you down. That's to get you ready for the next sweet thing that comes into your life.
There you go.
You know, And if in fact you got a girl that's making you happy, then like I wrote a song called Wow We Ole, you know, like I'm so excited, you know, wow, that's the blues in 3 languages, wow, English, we, French, Ole, Spanish. I'm so excited about the girl that I'm singing in 3 languages about her. And so, and loss is in there. So I think the blues, again, it's about the human condition, and it's real when it's done well. You can have bad blues or this or that, but I think that's why they will always, I think, remain relevant, to deal with problems and to celebrate joys and triumphs.
And Lou, it's
And
also,
so I think blues hand in hand.
I was just gonna say, it's, I'm not, because obviously we played together for y'all played in your band for a number of years, and about
Right.
also in isn't it also about the stories? I mean, that's the thing I love about country too. Is, I mean, it's just the kind of getting back to this. I mean, the stories are just tremendous.
Yes, it is. And in fact, when I write songs, if you break my songs down, they really are little stories. There's a beginning, there's an end, there's a middle. In a lot of songwriting, it's like it takes you on a journey, like a story does.
Yeah.
It takes you on a journey. And the blues, and like say, the blues, you say about country, a lot of writing, even Motown, there's stories. It's the stories that the people relate to because it relates to the people's lives. And that's why music is such a powerful influence on our lives. And blues is, again, I think, you know, I don't share the notion that jazz is the only real American music. I think that's very highbrow, because jazz is joined at the foot with blues, and I think sometimes blues is relegated to not being authentic, but I think it actually is in many ways more original than jazz. But both of them have value, obviously. So I think that's why people from anywhere, I think, can relate to. If you're laying down a groove and you're saying something, and people relate to it, I don't think that's ever going to go out of style. It may change in different forms, but I think that's why the blues is just like cast a spell over me and Keith and so many other people once you take the time to really get into them. And in my case, of course, I never planned to be a musician. Unlike Keith, I was going to be a center fielder for the Detroit Tigers, I thought, when I was a kid. But music, like I said, the only thing I played growing up was baseball and the radio. I didn't pick up guitar till I was past 30 years of age. Didn't play my first professional show till I was about 45 years old. So all this is very late, not a planned thing. But once I found out that I wanted to do that, it's something that you know, that I love to do it even now. You know, it's a great thing, because and to see other people relate to. And I think the other thing about it as relates to writing is that it brings people together in a way that people from different backgrounds, you know, you like that, I like that, let me buy you a beer. And so I've made a huge number of friendships that I would never have made had it not been because of the.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask too, Lou, if in terms of when you do this, one thing that's nothing we talked about too, Doc. First of all, let Luke. I was asking if you can hear me. Looks like you're frozen up. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm gonna come back in just a sec. Okay, you can hear me now.
I got you now.
Okay. Yeah. It's just in terms of with the when you're playing, there seems to be a relationship in terms of. Well, actually, Doc, I'll let you ask that question, because you're the one brought it up to my attention about a lot of musicians who are also writers. And I mean, like I said, not just the two of us, but kind of to expound on that. What I mean, what is there kind of a connection? I mean, in terms of that creative stream there, you think, or?
Are you asking me that?
Yeah.
Yo, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I think it's a creative. It's a creative extension of, and a lot of journalists. I mean, my first band was called the JOA Blues Band, made up of some non-playing reporters and editors, me included. But yeah, I do think there's a process there that writers are creative people, and music is just an extension of that. And if you're fortunate enough to, you know, you can link that talent of writing, which is really getting back to my point of how I picked journalism to study. I mean, I didn't realize, I took for granted that everybody can write. Writing is no big deal. But what I learned was there are a lot of people out here who are articulate and brilliant, but they cannot write. And I know you've had that experience too. They talk a great game, but they write something down. You say, like, what is this? And so writing is, I think, is really a critical skill that can be used in so many ways. And if you can turn it into stories, and get people's attention, because again, getting back to Keith's point and both your point about in these times, getting people's attention, number one, to read, turn off the doggone TV, turn off the cable debates, get into something and learn something and enjoy something. And to me, it's what's always interesting to me is the process that story emanates from. Like Keith, you talking about the Fire and Wine and how you wrote that story and it kind of evolved. And even when I get back to read my own story I wrote, I said, like, what was I thinking? How did I get? Then I say, well, you know what? That's pretty good. How did I come up with that? I don't even know how it happened, but it just kind of came. And that whole process is kind of mysterious. You kind of let it evolve. And at the end of the day, it's great. That's why I was really appreciative the fact when I sent this thing off to Keith, and for Keith to say, hey man, this is a pretty good little story. I mean, that's really such a charge, man. Just like people clapping for you after you play a song, So you guys being the kind of writers you are and being very astute and talented, to note something that I wrote, man, it really means a lot to me, man. And what I hope to do is write some more stuff now that I'm a procrastinator and I got other things I've been involved in, but I really want to write some more stuff. I've got, books started, dribs and drabs, kernels of ideas. If I ever get the discipline, I think I've got a good story, a good book in me. But
oh wow.
But writing is something I love the whole process. I love writing. I love music, and it's a way to communicate and connect with people. And I don't think you can do too much of that.
I want to ask you I want to explore that a little bit more. In the audience, Luther has so much esteem and in his background. He was also over when it was just getting started, Wayne State's Institute for Minorities, the journalism program at Wayne State.
Right. Right.
But I'm going to the heart of the fact that, there's a love for education and really bringing writers along. And so tell us a little bit, Luther, about your writing process. Okay. So you've had, and I know you may not even think about it now.
Right.
But we got a lot of people who read Detroit Stories Quarterly, and they are aspiring writers. And so taking a look, look behind the scenes, giving us a look behind the scenes. How do you go through the process of writing? You get an idea because you've written songs.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you handle that?
It's funny because all kinds of people write in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
For me, in songs or stories, particularly with songs where I've written more songs than stories, my wife gets on me for this. So we were walking in the neighborhood and she'll see my head bobbing. And she said, you thinking of a song? But my thing is, for me, what triggers me is I hear phrases and words that connect with me. And I will say, it will stick in my head. There's a phrase that it might be a song or something, and it'll stick in my head. And I tell the story about this Far Out song on my CD called "Put Me in the Coffin." Most folks, what kind of song is this? Put me in the coffin. And it is kind of out there, and where'd that come through? Yeah. And I think I told Keith, my daughter, when I picked her up from college one year, driving her home from the airport, she said, Daddy, if anything ever happens to you, they're going to have to put me in a coffin with you. And it floored me. Yeah. That somebody said, she said, they're going to have to put me in the coffin. I said, oh my God. But that phrase stuck in my head. And it's like several years later, this song comes out called Put Me in the Coffin. The first blues song I ever wrote was called Barbecue Baby. And I heard, and it just stuck in my head that there should be a blues song called Barbecue Baby. It sounded like a blues song.
Yeah.
then what I do, I kind of see words and connect them in different ways.
Okay.
And so I took a song like I wrote, and Keith's heard it before. I wrote a song called Menopause Woman. Now, when people hear that phrase, they say, what the hell is this boy talking about? And I always set it up because I always say, I thought I wrote this song for all the women in my life and the women here tonight, and it's called Menopause Woman. People say, what are you doing? What kind of song is this? But again, I have a way of connecting words in a different way, seeing words in a different way. So I wrote a song called Menopause Woman. So I wrote the song, and it goes like this. I got a menopause woman, and everybody holds their breath about what is he gonna say? What's he gonna say? I got a menopause woman. All the men pause when the girl walks in.
Oh, wow.
I got a menopause woman. All the men pause when the girl, and once I hit that phrase, people fall out. They say, yeah, that's me. You know, so I kind of like have and this is just a gift that I can see words pull. I hear a phrase or I hear a word, and I will connect it, and I might store it in the back of my head for a time till then it all comes together. So I hear, like, it's not like seeing colors, but my mind is always like hearing phrases that stick in my head, like they never go away. They go there and boom, it comes out. And it might be an idea for a story, you know, for this or that, and it might stick in my head. And then this probably, so it's not like here's 10 things to do to write. Unfortunately,
right.
It's more, it's really kind of organic, you know, it's just kind of seamless, and you get into a mode and it just comes out. I don't know. I wish I could be more articulate in terms of how I do it, but that really is how my stuff comes to me.
Well, real quick, if I can, I see Cornelius joined us. You know, that's the other, and I wanted to see Cornelius, if you had anything you wanted to add, if you just kind of tuning in, or I just saw you just joined the group. We're glad Cornelius, of course, is the other co-founder of Detroit Stories Quarterly. And did you anything you wanted to add, or if not, we just go ahead and move ahead real quick. Looks like not. So he's staying on sign up, but go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Well, so this was not, and it's hard to ask this question, Luther, because since you put songs, to some extent, you have been writing fiction. I mean, songwriting is what you create, but from the genre of fiction writing, as we, you know, as we're talking about, is this the first actual fiction piece that you've written in terms of a short story?
Probably. I've written some poems from time to time, but I really haven't made not a concerted effort to write short stories per se. Yeah. So this was kind of, kind of unusual for me. I think I've got some more in me. Matter of fact, I know I do. My issue is, you know, discipline and staying focused, because I'm doing all these other things, trying to fit those in. But I love writing, and I need some money for my retirement and golden years, so maybe that'll help me, you know. So, but I love the writing. I just, you know, haven't been in that arena and focused enough to do it. And so when I read, like, I just finished a great book by John Grisham that he wrote some years ago called The Red Rooster, the Rooster Bar, which is about law school and lawyers, and fascinating book to read. And he's written a lot of books, and I just said, man, how does this guy do it, man? Right. And I would like to be able to do something like that. I think it's a real gift. Right. It's a real gift to be able to tell stories. It's a gift. And I remember my mother, when I was a little bitty boy, holding me in her arms, telling me nursery rhymes and telling me stories. And I loved it. I just loved it so much. And, you know, a good story can really make a difference. It can do things that debating the person on stage, like, you should think this, you should think that. But if you can turn that into a really powerful story, it kind of breaks down the resistance of folks. A straight up political debate, they can see everything you coming with, and they got their defenses up. But if you tell them a story that they can relate to, they can't run from, they can't hide from.
Yeah.
You know, that can make your point a lot more than just debating somebody. And I'm going to make you believe what I believe.
Right,
you
right.
know.
It's like comedians, you know. I mean, I think, you know, all the some best comedians are best storytellers. You know, Richard Pryor, George Carlin.
Absolutely.
I mean, they you know, they're making that point, but it's the story.
Yep.
You know, it's the story. You know, and like you said, I think I got my storytelling ability. I never knew it before my father. You know, because he never. I mean, he probably spoke 5 words in his entire life. That didn't say much. But I used to ask him before I go to bed. I was a kid just like you. You know, said, Dad, tell a story, and Dad would make up a story on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
He would just invent. He would just make up this story and start telling it, and just keep on going. Next thing you know, I was asleep. And I look back, so I don't know where he got it. You know, but he could just sit there and just start invent these characters like this, and I'd be listening to this story, and I think there's like what I said, that love of story just comes back from that.
Right.
Yeah, Doc, go ahead.
Yeah. So one of my favorite lines, Luther, in your piece is the question that was raised by your character: no guitars and no blues in heaven. You know, that question was asked by your character, and I mentioned that because there is clearly a theme about mortality in there.
Yeah.
And you got me thinking some years ago in one of the classes I used to teach, we used to have W.H. Auden's, I'm sorry, not W.H. Auden, but E.B. White's piece about Once More to the Lake. And it's a short story about a man. It's essentially talking about mortality. And so this is kind of my long way of asking, because, you know, all of us are a bit younger as time is going on. Was this piece to some extent you reflecting a little bit on mortality, or and I know that's part of the blues genre anyway.
Right.
But
well, I guess it is in a way. It was more the idea of taking the Twilight Zone idea and converting it to the blues, which was, and if you, but in many respects you're right, because if you look at those Twilight episodes, a lot of them are about crossing over, going back and forth between this world and the next world. What is the next world like? And I think that's the great mystery that nobody knows until you cross that, you know, to that other side, and which makes it so fascinating to wonder about. The idea that, hey, me and Keith gonna be jamming I'll be in heaven. I don't know.
Oh wow!
The Keith might get there too. But the idea that we be playing guitars in heaven is a pretty cool idea, I think.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So I think, and on a subliminal level, you probably are right about that. It might not be that bad if I got a good guitar, man, and it's in tune. Then it might not be a bad thing.
There you go.
Well, look here, guys. This this has been great. And Lou, again, thanks so much for letting us put your story.
Hey, thank you, man.
Yeah,
thank you, man.
It was a great addition. Yeah, and like I said,
and I hope to write a few more. I've got a few other ideas. So you guys have inspired me.
No, that's what we want to do, man. So yeah, please do when you get them. Hopefully, we'll use that as encouragement to write some more. And you got to
definitely. Now, how does that roll out? Then that thing in the July issue. How do you roll that out?
Yeah, well, it'll be like I said, it'll be coming out a couple, and we'll just put the word out when it's the exact date. But like I said, we're about done with editing now. Of course, like I said, we come out seasonally, so this is summer, then come fall, etc. But we don't have exact months like that. But we just stuck with it seasonally. But this one will be coming out in the next couple of weeks, and we'll definitely let you know and everybody know and promote everything. And this is part of the promotion, just let people know who's
right.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you, and I hopefully, like I say, I'll have something else down the road, just as compelling, man. But thank you, guys. Congratulations on what you guys are doing, man. Because I really think we can't lose sight of all of life, and we know we're in a tight situation right now, and there's a lot of conflict and this and that. but there still is a place for stories and imagination, and taking people to a place where they can find some comfort and some joy, and allow them to, so they can cope with what's out here. So you guys are doing important work. So you should feel good about that.
Thanks so much, man. And I do want to let people watch know that we do have a website now, and so I want to let people know our website. Can you guys see it now?
Yep.
On the screen. Okay. Yeah, this is our website, Detroit, home of Detroit Stories Quarterly. We've had that up about 3 weeks now, and this is where we're going to have, eventually a blog site, but also we have all the editions. The links to all of our magazines are here. We're going to be having our the DSQ live episodes. What you're seeing now, that's going to be housed here. So we'll have all those video episodes will be here, et cetera, as we move forward. We also, of course, have a Facebook page, Detroit Stories Quarterly. And also, for anybody who wants to join, we have a fan page, Friends of DSQ. So if anybody wants to join it, let me know, and we'll definitely send that out to you. So that's how we're able to let everybody know, or an email as well, and let everybody know what we're doing and when we're going to be doing it. And so that is where we are. And I've said the address, the website address is kind of a mouthful, but it's Detroit-stories-quarterly.mailchimpsites.com. I think if you can follow the cursor, can you guys see it up there, the website?
Yeah.
Yes, where the cursor is, that's where we are. And other than that, once again, thanks very much, guys.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Robert, and congratulations again.
Thank you, sir.
All right, take care now.
All right.
Okay.